Let's be honest. Most men go through life thinking women hold all the cards, that they're emotionally stronger, socially smarter, and always one step ahead. You've been told that women are mysterious, untouchable, and impossible to read. But here's the truth you were never meant to hear. Mystery is often a mask, and confidence is often a defense. I'm not here to flatter you. I'm here to tell you what sits underneath the surface, where attraction is actually decided. I'm speaking to you as a woman who understands how the female mind protects itself, and the first thing you must understand is this. Women fear emotional exposure far more than rejection. Rejection hurts, yes, but exposure threatens identity. From a young age, women learn that their value is closely tied to how they are perceived: attractive, desired, chosen. When that image cracks, the internal damage is deep. That's why many women would rather appear indifferent than vulnerable, detached than honest. This creates the first hidden weakness, the need to feel emotionally safe without admitting it. A woman may test you, pull away, or create distance, not because she's strong, but because she's unsure. Uncertainty makes her uncomfortable. Not knowing where she stands with you makes her anxious, even if she never shows it. Silence from a man she cares about doesn't empower her, it destabilizes her, yet she'll rarely say that out loud. Instead, she'll disguise it as independence. Another truth men rarely hear is that women are deeply affected by how they feel around you, not just how you treat them. Logic doesn't lead attraction, emotion does. A woman may know you're kind, consistent, and available, but if being around you doesn't trigger emotional intensity, she feels restless. And that restlessness becomes self-doubt. She starts asking herself why she's not more excited, why she's not more invested. That confusion can quietly eat away at her confidence. Here's where men misunderstand power. They think power is control. For women, power is emotional certainty. When she feels certain about how she feels with you, she relaxes. When she doesn't, she becomes guarded, critical, or distant. That behavior isn't dominance, it's self-protection. The female mind is constantly scanning for emotional risk because emotional pain lingers longer for her than physical discomfort. There's another layer most men never notice. Women often compare themselves, not loudly, but internally, to other women, to past versions of themselves, to imagined rivals. Even confident women do this, especially confident women. When a woman senses that she could be replaced or that her emotional position isn't secure, it triggers a quiet panic. Not jealousy in the dramatic sense, but a subtle fear of being unseen, unchosen, or forgotten. So she adapts. She may become more agreeable, or more distant, more affectionate, or suddenly colder. From the outside, it looks confusing. From the inside, it's a survival response. She's trying to regain emotional balance without admitting she lost it. This is why men who stay grounded, calm, and emotionally centered have such impact. Not because they manipulate, but because they don't react emotionally to every shift. Emotional steadiness feels rare, and rarity feels valuable. Understand this deeply. A woman doesn't want a man who needs her approval. She wants a man whose presence stabilizes her internal world. When you become that man, you stop chasing signals, and you start becoming the signal. One of the biggest illusions women maintain is the idea that they are always emotionally intuitive, that they just know what they feel and why they feel it. The truth is far less comforting. Many women are deeply confused by their own emotions, and that confusion is the second hidden weakness they don't want men to recognize. The female emotional world is intense, layered, and constantly shifting. Feelings arrive first, explanations come later, if they come at all. When a woman feels drawn to you, repelled by you, calm with you, or anxious around you, she often doesn't fully understand the source. She only knows the sensation, and when she can't explain it, she feels out of control. Loss of emotional clarity feels like loss of power. This is why women sometimes rewrite emotional history. A connection that once felt electric suddenly becomes not right. A man she deeply cared about becomes never that important. This isn't always dishonesty toward you, it's an attempt to regain internal order. The female mind seeks coherence. When emotions don't make sense, they must be reframed so the self still feels intelligent, intentional, and safe. Here's what men rarely realize. Emotional confusion makes women anxious about commitment. Not because they fear closeness, but because they fear choosing wrong. Choosing wrong doesn't just hurt, it threatens their self-image. Admitting I chose badly feels like admitting I misunderstood myself. That's a heavy psychological blow. So instead of leaning in, she may hesitate. She might slow things down, overanalyze your words, or search for flaws that justify her uncertainty. It's not that she doesn't feel something. It's that she feels too much without clarity, and uncertainty feels dangerous. This leads to another uncomfortable truth. Women are more emotionally influenced by inconsistency than they admit. Consistency is calming, but inconsistency is stimulating. A man who is emotionally predictable may feel safe, but a man who introduces slight emotional unpredictability activates deeper emotional processing. She thinks about him more, replays conversations, questions meanings. That mental engagement feels like chemistry, even when it's actually emotional turbulence. And here's the weakness. Women often mistake emotional intensity for emotional compatibility. When a man creates emotional highs and lows, it feels significant, meaningful, hard to ignore, even if it's draining, even if it causes anxiety. The female mind is wired to attach importance to what creates emotional movement. This doesn't mean chaos is attractive. It means emotional presence matters more than emotional perfection. A man who never creates emotional friction may unintentionally fade into the background of her emotional world. And fading feels threatening, not to attraction, but to her sense of being alive within the connection. Another layer women rarely discuss is how much they fear being emotionally transparent first, being the first to care more, the first to reach out, the first to admit vulnerability. That first step feels like surrender, and surrender in her mind equals loss of leverage. So she waits, watches, tests, not to manipulate, but to protect herself from exposure. She wants reassurance without asking for it, confirmation without confession. When it doesn't arrive clearly, emotional tension builds inside her. This is why emotionally grounded men stand out. Men who don't rush reassurance, but don't withdraw warmth either. Men who allow emotional space without disappearing. That balance quietly resolves her internal conflict. When a woman feels emotionally confused around you, but not unsafe, she leans in. When she feels confused and unsafe, she pulls away. Your presence determines which direction she moves. Understanding this doesn't make you manipulative. It makes you aware. And awareness is power when it's paired with restraint. Women are far more afraid of emotional abandonment than they ever admit. Not being left physically, but being left internally. Being with a man who is present in body, but gone in spirit. That fear runs deep, and it forms the third hidden weakness, the need to feel emotionally prioritized without having to demand it. From the outside, many women appear independent, self-sufficient, even emotionally detached. But beneath that exterior is a constant question quietly playing in the background. Do I matter to him the way he matters to me? That question is rarely spoken because asking it feels like lowering their value. So instead, women observe, they read tone, they analyze timing, they notice effort. Every small shift becomes data. When a woman senses that she is no longer emotionally prioritized, something changes inside her. Not immediately, not dramatically, but slowly. She becomes more guarded, less expressive, less warm. This isn't punishment, it's self-preservation. Emotional investment without perceived reciprocation feels humiliating. And humiliation is one of the deepest emotional wounds for the female psyche. Here's a truth men often miss. Women don't need constant attention, but they need consistent emotional acknowledgement, being remembered, being considered, being mentally present in a man's life, a message that shows thought, a response that shows awareness. These small signals do more than grand gestures ever could. They confirm emotional relevance. Another layer of this weakness is how women internalize emotional neglect. When a man pulls back emotionally, she doesn't always think he's distant. Often she thinks, "What did I do wrong?" That self-blame quietly erodes her confidence. And when confidence drops, behavior shifts. She may seek reassurance indirectly, or she may detach to avoid feeling small. This is why women sometimes appear inconsistent when they feel emotionally unsure. One day warm, the next distant. One moment invested, the next cold. She's oscillating between hope and self-respect, between wanting closeness and protecting her pride. That inner conflict is exhausting, but she won't show it. There's also a subtle fear women rarely confess: being emotionally replaceable, not by someone better, but by someone new. Novelty feels threatening because it suggests disposability. The idea that what she offers emotionally could be easily substituted triggers deep insecurity, even in confident women. It makes her question her uniqueness. So she watches how you handle options, how you speak about other women, how you respond to attention, not because she wants control, but because she wants to know where she stands. Emotional ambiguity feels like standing on unstable ground. Here's where men often sabotage themselves. They think withholding emotional presence increases value. Sometimes distance does create curiosity, but prolonged emotional absence creates anxiety, not attraction. Curiosity draws her in. Anxiety pushes her away or forces her to detach for self-respect. A man who understands this doesn't overinvest, but he doesn't emotionally vanish either. He remains grounded, present, and emotionally consistent without being needy. That consistency becomes rare, and rarity creates security. When a woman feels emotionally prioritized without begging for it, something profound happens. She softens, she relaxes, she stops testing. Emotional safety replaces emotional vigilance. One of the quietest fears in the female mind is the fear of losing emotional control. Not control over you, but control over herself. This is the fourth hidden weakness women rarely acknowledge: the fear of wanting someone more than they want her. Desire for a woman is not just attraction, it's vulnerability. The moment she realizes she's emotionally invested, she also realizes she's exposed. Her moods shift with your attention. Her thoughts drift toward you without permission. That loss of emotional autonomy feels dangerous, even intoxicating, and the more self-aware she is, the more unsettling it becomes. This is why women often resist strong feelings at first, not because the feelings aren't real, but because they feel overwhelming. She may downplay interest, delay responses, or emotionally pull back just as things begin to feel intense. From the outside, it looks like mixed signals. Internally, it's emotional damage control. Here's what men rarely understand. A woman losing emotional control doesn't feel romantic to her. It feels destabilizing. She's taught to value emotional intelligence, composure, and self-respect. Wanting someone deeply threatens all three, so she fights it, not consciously, but instinctively. Another layer of this weakness is how women associate desire with risk. If she wants you more, she risks rejection. If she invests more, she risks embarrassment. If she opens up, she risks being misunderstood or dismissed. Each step toward emotional honesty feels like stepping onto thinner ice. So instead of moving forward, she circles, watches, tests your emotional steadiness. This is where men often misinterpret behavior. When a woman becomes slightly colder as she gets closer, it's not disinterest, it's fear of imbalance. She's checking whether she's about to fall harder than you, whether she's giving more than she's receiving, whether she's surrendering leverage without realizing it. And leverage matters more to women than they'll admit. Not as a weapon, but as protection. Emotional leverage ensures she won't be the one left exposed. Losing it feels like standing naked in a room where judgment is possible. There's also the fear of idealization. When a woman begins to idealize a man, she knows disappointment could follow, expectations rise, imagined futures form, and with that comes the possibility of emotional collapse if reality doesn't match the fantasy. So she suppresses excitement, acts indifferent, tells herself not to get carried away. This inner restraint often looks like emotional inconsistency, one moment affectionate, the next distant, one day engaged, the next reserved. She's trying to regulate desire before it regulates her, and that effort consumes emotional energy. Here's the part men almost never see. Women admire emotional self-control in men because they crave it in themselves. A man who remains calm, centered, and emotionally measured becomes a stabilizing force. Not cold, not detached, but grounded. That grounding allows her to relax her internal resistance. When a woman feels that you won't exploit her vulnerability, she stops guarding it. When she senses you won't disappear once she invests, she allows herself to want you. Emotional safety gives permission for desire. This is why pressure kills attraction. Pressure forces her to confront feelings before she's ready, and confrontation triggers defense. A man who moves with patience, confidence, and emotional restraint signals strength without threat. Understand this clearly. When a woman pulls back just as things get intense, it's often because she's closer than she wants to admit. The men who chase at that moment lose ground. The men who stay steady gain it. One of the most uncomfortable truths about the female mind is how deeply validation shapes emotional security. This is the fifth hidden weakness women rarely want exposed: the quiet dependence on feeling chosen, desired, and irreplaceable, even when they appear confident. Validation for women isn't about ego in the shallow sense. It's about reassurance of worth, from attention, from affection, from emotional significance. When that validation disappears or feels uncertain, self-doubt creeps in, and self-doubt changes behavior fast. A woman may say she doesn't need reassurance, but emotionally, she needs consistency. Not compliments every hour, but confirmation that her presence matters. When that confirmation fades, the female mind fills the gap with imagination, and imagination is rarely kind. Here's where men often misunderstand reactions. When a woman seeks validation, it may come out as irritation, emotional distance, or sudden coldness. Rarely does it come out as a direct request. Asking feels risky. Asking feels needy. So instead, she signals indirectly. And if those signals are missed, insecurity deepens. Another layer of this weakness is comparison. Women constantly compare, quietly, internally, unconsciously. Not just physical comparison, but emotional. Does he treat me like he treated her? Am I as interesting as the women who catch his attention? Would he fight for me the way he would for someone else? These questions don't require evidence to feel real. They exist because uncertainty exists. Social environments amplify this. Attention from others can temporarily boost confidence, but it also raises anxiety. Because attention is fleeting, it confirms desirability, but not emotional priority. Being wanted isn't the same as being chosen, and women feel that difference deeply. This is why emotional inconsistency from a man is so destabilizing. One day engaged, the next distant. One moment warm, the next distracted. Each shift forces her to reassess her worth in his world. Over time, that reassessment becomes exhausting. Some women respond by overinvesting, trying harder, being more agreeable, more accommodating. Others respond by withdrawing completely, protecting pride by pretending not to care. Both are reactions to the same wound, uncertain validation. Here's the uncomfortable truth. Women often attach their sense of desirability to the man they're emotionally invested in. His attention becomes the mirror through which they see themselves. When that mirror goes dark, they feel invisible. This doesn't mean men should constantly reassure. Excessive reassurance loses value. What matters is emotional reliability, showing up when it counts, remembering what matters to her, staying present without being overbearing. Another hidden fear tied to validation is aging. Even young women feel it in subtle ways, the fear of losing attractiveness, of being replaced by someone newer, younger, more exciting. This fear isn't logical, but it's powerful. It makes validation feel time-sensitive. Men who understand this don't exploit it. They don't withhold warmth to gain leverage. They remain emotionally consistent while maintaining self-respect. That balance creates trust. When a woman feels emotionally validated without feeling dependent, something shifts. She becomes more secure, more expressive, less reactive. Validation, when given quietly and sincerely, strengthens connection instead of creating neediness. And the strongest form of validation isn't words, it's presence. Emotional presence that doesn't waver under pressure. Presence that says, without saying it, you matter here. That's the kind of validation women rarely talk about, but never forget. The final weakness is the one that ties everything together, and the one women almost never admit, even to themselves. It's the fear of being truly seen, not admired, not desired, but understood. Being seen means her contradictions are noticed, her insecurities recognized, her emotional patterns understood, and that level of visibility feels terrifying, because once someone truly sees you, they have the power to judge, reject, or leave with full knowledge of who you are. So women curate. They present versions of themselves that feel safe, the strong version, the carefree version, the independent version. These versions aren't fake, they're protective. They hide the softer parts that fear being dismissed. This creates the sixth hidden weakness. Women want deep emotional understanding, but fear the vulnerability required to receive it. They crave connection that goes beyond surface-level attraction, yet instinctively guard against it. That internal conflict shapes most of their behavior in relationships. When a man begins to understand her patterns, what makes her withdraw, what makes her anxious, what makes her feel safe, she feels exposed, not threatened, but uncovered. And exposure brings risk. So she may test him, challenge him, push him away slightly to see if understanding comes with judgment. Here's what men rarely realize. A woman pulling back after being emotionally understood is often a sign of depth, not disinterest. She's checking whether emotional intimacy is safe, whether being known will cost her dignity. This is why women are drawn to men who listen without fixing, who observe without interrogating, who understand without labeling. Emotional intelligence feels rare because it requires restraint, and restraint feels safe. Another layer of this fear is permanence. If a man truly sees her and accepts her, the connection feels real, and real means loss is possible. Losing a deep connection hurts far more than losing a shallow one, so she may unconsciously keep things lighter than she wants them to be. This fear of being seen also explains why women sometimes sabotage good connections. They focus on small flaws, create distance over minor issues, or convince themselves something is missing. It's easier to walk away than to risk being fully known and possibly abandoned. The men who stand out don't chase emotional access. They don't demand openness. They allow it to emerge naturally. Their steadiness invites trust without forcing it. They create space where vulnerability feels optional, not required. When a woman feels that she can be understood without being consumed, she opens. When she feels she can be seen without being judged, she stays. Emotional safety is the foundation of everything she wants, but struggles to ask for. So here's the truth I want you to sit with. Attraction begins with mystery, but connection survives on understanding. And understanding requires patience, presence, and emotional maturity. Now let me ask you something personal. In your last relationship or connection, did you feel truly seen, or were you just tolerated? Write your answer in the comments. If this message gave you clarity, like the video, subscribe for more truths most people avoid, and share this with a friend who needs to hear it.